The most important process that human beings go through 300 billion times per day is a process called methylation. It is estimated that approximately 44% of people worldwide lack the ability to methylate properly because of a genetic mutation in their MTHFR gene. This mutation has the potential to cause significant health problems for those people that have it. You're probably wondering if you have it. Well, if you have ADD, ADHD, OCD, depression, anxiety, or other mental health issues, if you have infertility, if you've dealt with miscarriages, one or many, postpartum depression, even lactation issues, gut disorders that can't be solved, ranging from excessive gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, and more. If any of those diagnoses or symptoms that I just mentioned describes you, then I promise you are in store for a life-changing podcast today. And I really pray that you decide to forward the podcast to everyone you know, because this message is so important. Welcome to the Foundational Health Podcast, where we provide education and inspiration to help guide you on your journey to look better, feel better, and most importantly, heal better. Hello, and welcome to the Foundational Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Kevin Schultz, and today we are going to talk about MTHFR. If you haven't heard of this yet and you see MTHFR spelled out, I promise it's not what you might be thinking. The intent of the podcast today is to arm you with life-changing information and tell you how you can get tested to find out if you have this MTHFR gene mutation and what supplements you need to be taking to make up for the lack of methylation that takes place in your body if you have this mutation. I'll be discussing a hugely important new study that sheds so much light on this topic and has the ability to help millions of people worldwide. Be sure to stick around to the end, where I'll give you some very important action steps that I promise will make a world of difference for you as well as your loved ones. MTHFR. It stands for methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase. And it just might be one of the most important health discussions you've likely never had with your medical doctor. If you have ADD or ADHD, you are not deficient in Ritalin or Adderall, but you very well may be deficient in some key nutrients that are contributing to your ADD, ADHD, anxiety, depression, or whatever else it is that you are dealing with. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of supplementing for deficiencies so your body can methylate and you can heal. Methylation is the process where we take the majority of all nutrients that enter our body, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, carbs, fats, proteins, those micro and macronutrients. Methylation is the process where we take those in through food, through supplements, and then we convert them into a usable form so our body can absorb and use them properly. If we can't methylate these things properly, then it leads to a deficiency in the body. There's a saying that I strongly believe to be true in the natural health world. The saying goes like this: people are often not nearly as sick as they think they are. They're often simply deficient in a few key nutrients that can dramatically change how they look, feel, and heal. The most common gene mutation in the world is the MTHFR gene mutation, and it is estimated that 44 to 60% of people have some form of this genetic mutation. What this gene does is it takes folate, which is the natural form of vitamin B9, so that's what folate is B9. It takes the natural form folate and the synthetic form, folic acid, which, by the way, is laboratory-made synthetic chemical, that form of B9 as well, that you cannot find in nature at all. So it takes that and it methylates it. So the MTHFR gene is responsible for taking either folate or folic acid, it converts it then through this methylation process into a usable form in the body, which is 5-methylfolate. So let's dive into this study that I mentioned a little earlier. This study was published in 2024, so just recently, in a journal called Clinical Medicine. It's a very prestigious journal, really well done study. And this study highlights what happens in your body at a cellular level when your body is either sufficient or deficient in 5-methylfolate. So it talks about having adequate levels of 5-methylfolate being essential in the body for homeostasis in human beings, meaning if you don't have adequate amounts, you don't hit homeostasis. If you have adequate amounts, your body hits homeostasis, and homeostasis in our body means balance. So if you're lacking 5-methylfolate and don't have this homeostasis, it sets people up for what they call congenital malformations at birth, including the most common, which are known as neural tube defects. It also talks about the salvage of predisposed diseased states. So what does that mean? It means if you have a predisposition to a disease state because of genetic mutations, it is not your destiny that you will have that disease. So if a woman has the BRCA gene, the BRCA gene mutation, which a lot of women are familiar with this, it is meaning that you're predisposed to having breast cancer. But if you have that gene mutation, it does not mean that you are destined to have breast cancer. If a person has the MTHFR gene mutation, it does not mean you are destined to have mental health issues or infertility issues or the gut issues or other symptoms or diseases that I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast. It also doesn't mean if you have the heart disease gene or the cancer genes, other cancer genes, that you are destined to have those things like so many other things that run in your family. You are not destined to have those. So this is a message of hope and good news, by the way. Your genes are not your destiny. Bruce Lipton, who is a genetic scientist out of the University of Wisconsin-Madison, actually, our home state here, Bruce Lipton has a quote on what his expertise is, which is genetic expression. And so what he talks about is basically this. He says that if you have genetic predisposition for a disease, if the breast cancer gene runs in your family, the heart disease runs in your family, the MTHFR gene runs in your family, it is as if your ancestors, your parents, handed you a loaded shotgun. And yes, that loaded shotgun is dangerous, but it's only dangerous if you pull the trigger. If you don't pull the trigger, then that gene will not express itself, or it will express itself differently in a healthy way. So this is the difference in the title of this podcast. Are your genes dirty or clean? This is the difference. Bruce Lipton talks about this genetic expression, epigenetics. The science of epigenetics is all about, if you have a bad gene, you get to choose how does that gene express itself. If you make horrible lifestyle choices throughout your life, you're going to up the odds of the breast cancer gene expressing itself as breast cancer. And if you make great lifestyle choices, you up the odds of not getting breast cancer. So I cannot say this enough. Your genetic makeup is not your destiny, whether you've been led to believe that or not. So this study talks about how you can very effectively offset the negative effects of the MTHFR gene mutation by supplementing with the right methylated supplements. Nutridyne is my number one choice for the vast majority of my family supplements. I'm a huge fan of nearly everyone taking what I call the foundational 4 supplements: a multivitamin, a spore-based probiotic, omega-3 fish oil, and vitamin D3 with K2. The large majority of people are deficient in many of these nutrients, and they are the building blocks to gut health, immune system strength, brain health, heart health, and every other aspect of your health. Don't fall into the trap of chasing symptoms with supplements, and instead start to rebuild your health with the foundational 4. We partnered with Nutridyne so that you can save 15% on every order, and not just with the Foundational 4, but all of your other supplements as well. Go to foundationalhealth365.com, click on Shop Brands, and then Nutridyne, set up your account, and you're all set to automatically get 15% off all orders. Now let's get back to the Foundational Health Podcast. When you deprive cells of that 5-methylfolate, remember that is the methylated form of folate or folic acid, it leads to something that they call reversible S-phase arrest. So I don't expect you to know what that is. I actually didn't know what that was before coming across this study. What is S-phase arrest? Well, you have 32 trillion cells in the body, and inside every single one of those cells is a twisted ladder-looking structure called DNA. Most people are familiar with that from high school chemistry class. So you have this twisted ladder-looking structure, looks like a spiral ladder instead of a spiral staircase, but that's called DNA. And this twisted ladder unzips right down the center, and then it creates a copy of itself, which is called DNA or cell replication. So when this DNA ladder unzips, it's very important after the replication takes place that it zips back up and all of the teeth of the ladder, just like a zipper, line up perfectly. However, this is what they show in this study. If you are deficient in 5-methylfolate, then the rungs of the ladder do not line up. The teeth of the zipper do not line up. And just like you wouldn't be able to zip up your jacket if the teeth of the zipper don't line up, the DNA cannot zip back up properly. And then you enter into something called S-phase arrest. So S-phase arrest, by the way, is a protective mechanism so that defective DNA, like cancers, cannot replicate and grow. So that's a great thing, right? It's a built-in check and balance system in the body that stops damaged DNA from replicating. And again, that is a really, really good thing. But when 5-methylfolate is missing, this check and balance system does not work the way that it's supposed to. So listen to this. If you have somebody without the MTHFR gene mutation, so their gene is functioning normally, if you give that person folic acid, again, that's the synthetic form, if you give that person folic acid, they will have a 2.5 time increase of 5-methylfolate in their cells. So that's good, right? Because without the gene mutation, the body can convert even that synthetic form into the good, usable form by the body. So folic acid, no gene mutation, you convert it, 2.5 time increase of 5-methylfolate in the cells, great process. Now, you take that same person, no gene mutation, and you give them folate, the natural form. They have a 10-fold increase of 5-methylfolate in the cells. So 4 times better than folic acid because, again, it's natural and not synthetic. So that's a huge difference there. So now let's talk about the people that have the gene mutation. And remember, we're talking 44 to 60% of the population that have this. That means 44% of autistic kids and adults and kids with ADHD, ADD, depression, anxiety, IBS, Crohn's disease, and other chronic gut disorders, infertility issues. Now, for the group of people in the study that have this MTHFR gene mutation, you give that group folic acid supplements. Just a reminder, you've got a folic acid synthetic. Just repeating that so you really get this down, because for some people it's a struggle. If you think acid, just automatically think synthetic. So you can always tell that difference between folic acid, folate. Folic acid, bad. Folate, good. So if you give that person now with a gene mutation, the folic acid supplementation, they have a 0% increase in 5-methylfolate in the cell. Give that same person now with the genetic mutation, folate, the good one. But guess what? 0% increase in 5-methylfolate in the cell. That is because if you have this gene mutation, your body can't convert the synthetic or the natural form into the usable form at all. Literally 0%. It cannot change it. for those 44% of people that have that genetic mutation. Here's the cool thing. Now you take that group of people that have this genetic mutation, that 44% of us, you give them 5-methylfolate, the usable form in a supplement. They have a 10-fold increase of 5-methylfolate in the cell. So that exact same 10x increase that the people without the gene mutation saw from taking folate, this group of people can get it with 5-methylfolate supplementation. So hugely, hugely important landmark study. And I mean, this is huge. So I'm going to repeat all of that quickly. Here again is what the study showed. Without the MTHFR gene mutation, folic acid supplementation, 2.5 increase in methylfolate in the cells. Folate supplementation, 10x increase of 5-methylfolate in the cells. People with the gene mutation, folic acid, 0%, folate, 0%. 5-methylfolate, 10x increase of 5-methylfolate in the cell. A few side notes on this that really will help this hit home and are also hugely important from this study. Corticosteroids actually block the conversion of folic acid into 5-methylfolate. So this is actually well known in the medical world, and medical doctors are supposed to, here's the protocol, because they know this, the protocol is supposed to be that because corticosteroids block the conversion, and corticosteroids, something like prednisone, for example, or other drugs that are given to people that have rheumatoid arthritis or other inflammatory diseases. It blocks the conversion of folic acid into that 5-methylfolate. So what do? What is the protocol? They give patients, that's right, folic acid, even though they know it blocks it. So they think like, oh, well, let's give them more then. And guess what the study shows? It doesn't matter how much you give this person. It doesn't absorb into the cell, 0%. And then also on top of that, you become folic acid toxic. So you develop a toxicity to this folic acid, which leads to a bunch of other health issues as well. So if you're taking any corticosteroids or anti-inflammatories for that matter, you need to supplement for sure at a bare minimum. If you get nothing out of this podcast, supplement with 5-methylfolate, whether you have that gene mutation or not, whether you've been tested or not. Another hugely important side note for people with the MTHFR gene mutation, it stops a natural process in the body which drives up something called homocysteine. And when you drive up homocysteine levels, it leads to something called vasoconstriction. Vasoconstriction, which means constriction of the vessels, drives up blood pressure as well. Not having that proper amount of 5-methylfolate can be, for many people, the cause of unknown blood pressure rising in the body. And I hear this all the time from patients. They don't know why my blood pressure is going up. This could be the answer for those people. There's another process that interferes with the breakdown of something called catecholamines, which drives up mental health issues like anxiety and depression, ADHD, ADD, and something called mood numbness, where people, they know that they should be happy or feeling certain things, even sadness for that matter, but because of the interference and the breakdown of these brain chemical catecholamines, they simply cannot feel what they know they should be feeling, hence the name mood numbness. In 1998, the government steps in, and the government says, okay, we see an increase in neural tube defects. We've done some studies, and here's the answer. So the FDA decided to start enriching and fortifying food. So if you see breads and crackers and pastas that say enriched and fortified, sounds amazing, right? Sounds really good. Those are good, positive sounding words. So sounds like a good thing, but what it means is they spray these foods with the synthetic chemical folic acid. And of course, they do this for, it's a good thought. They do it to prevent neural tube defects. And they actually did see a decrease in neural tube defects because of all of this. So I'm not saying that this was a horrible thing. They saw a decrease in neural tube defects when they incorporated it, and they see that decline continue worldwide. So that's great, right? But what if we go back to what we learned earlier, which is 2.5 increase in 5-methylfolate from those people who do not have the MTHFR gene mutation that took folic acid. So that is why they see this change, and this is why they saw the decline in neural tube defects. But what about the 44% of people who have the MTHFR gene mutation? Now imagine if instead pregnant mothers or women thinking about getting pregnant were told to supplement with 5-methylfolate instead of folic acid, and instead of trying to enrich and fortify foods with this synthetic folic acid, instead a public education campaign, all OBGYNs, which should know this information, but they don't get taught it by their pharmaceutical reps, which control all of the education in the medical world. Not my opinion, fact. So because they are not taught this stuff, and if they are not seeking it out, OBGYNs are still recommending folic acid at high levels for all pregnant women, that synthetic form. Whereas if they just simply changed that recommendation to a supplement with 5-methylfolate instead, imagine how many neural tube defects now could be prevented. Imagine how many miscarriages could be prevented. Imagine how many women could avoid postpartum depression, which is also part of this picture, or how many couples could avoid infertility issues. And we're just talking about pregnancy here. Now imagine all the other issues that we discussed at the beginning. So hopefully you're starting to see why this message, in my opinion, needs to be heard by everyone. In closing, I have 3 huge action steps for all of you. Number 1, remove folic acid from your diet. Look for any foods that have fortified and enriched and remove those foods from your diet immediately and remove them from your children's diet immediately. Sometimes parents report just doing this in 7 days, they will see dramatic differences in their kids with ADD, ADHD, autism spectrum issues. They will see huge differences. And it's because of folic acid toxicity. So it's not just that it doesn't absorb, it's not that it just doesn't methylate in the same way. It's because it also, in addition to those things, builds up in the body. Your body can't remove it properly without the methylation process being able to take place. It builds in the body and it does create problems with the brain and the nervous system. That's number 1. Look for any foods fortified and enriched and remove those foods from your diet immediately and permanently. Also, part of that first recommendation, look for folic acid supplements and remove those supplements. I don't care if your medical doctor recommended them to you, it's because they simply don't know. Get those supplements out of your daily supplement regimen immediately and replace those with a supplement that contains 5-methylfolate. Number 2, so instead of those foods, those supplements that we just talked about, focus on foods that are green leafy vegetables, high in folate, egg yolks, high in folate, citrus fruits, asparagus, chickpeas, black beans, all of those are excellent food sources for folate. So that's fantastic. And that would apply like that. Obviously, everybody should eat those things regardless because they have more than just folate in them. But those things, when we're talking about folate, would apply to the 56% that don't have the gene mutation because they can take that folate, if you remember, and convert it. But for the 44%, they can eat all those foods. They're still not getting folate in there because they've got this gene mutation. So don't miss that part. That is where this third recommendation comes in, and that is supplementation. At a bare minimum, you want to, whether you get tested or not, you want to start taking methylated supplements. So you can take methylated multivitamins. There's a supplement from Nutridyne called Methyl Complete. They also have a methylated B complex. All of those things are fantastic. It will not only have the methylated forms of B9, which is what this study focused on, but other forms of B vitamins and other things in the methylated forms or supplements. For instance, in the Methyl Complete, it has other things in there like NAC, which I'm a huge fan of, that help with this methylation process, the detoxification process, to naturally take place in the body the way that it's supposed to, whether you have the gene mutation or you don't. So you obviously don't need to buy my supplements. There's a lot of great companies out there. I do promise you, though, if you do buy them, they're in the exact ratios, the exact methylated forms that your body needs, whether you have the mutation or not. The inspirational, educational takeaways from today. Number 1, success equals simple habits performed daily over time. Number 2, if you're wondering if you have this gene mutation, it is super easy to find out. So you can go to the foundationalhealth365.com website, click on lab testing up at the top of the page, and then you click on shop lab tests. The second test down on that list is the 3x4 at-home cheek swab. So when you purchase that test through us, you get to do it, first of all, in the comfort of your own home, simple cheek swab, so really super easy to do. And then you get a full interpretation of the results and then also recommendations based on your results. And those come directly from us. So this test is comprehensive. And I mean very comprehensive. It's not just an MTHFR. Not only looks at that, of course, but also 156 other potential genetic mutations related to every aspect of your health and biology. The awesome thing about a test like this is that it never changes. You don't have to repeat this, like, testing D3 levels, for example. I do that every 6 months for myself. My wife does it as well, about every year for our kids. But this doesn't change. It is your gene. So even though it never changes, you never need to repeat that test the rest of your life. Also, keep in mind, it is not your destiny. Your genetics are not your destiny. You get to decide if you have dirty genes that act clean or clean genes that act dirty by the way you live your life. Exercise, food, supplementation, sleep, every other aspect of a healthy life. Number 3, you are a leader. If you enjoyed today's podcast and found it beneficial, I want you to think about who needs to hear this message. Be a leader for them. Drop them a text and tell them to check out the Foundational Health Podcast with Dr. Kevin Schultz, MTHFR. Are your genes dirty or clean? Until next time, make health your hobby. Thank you for listening to the Foundational Health Podcast. As always, if you would like to learn more about making health your hobby, visit our website at foundationalhealth365.com and follow me on Facebook at Kevin Schultz DC Foundational Health.